So yes, that's the opening song for the next month.
Okay.
And y'all already know it, so yay. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for participating in this Center for Spiritual Living Tucson. Thank you to all y'all on Zoom and YouTube. We're happy you're here, and I know our host is well placed to take care of you in that venue. So today I get to pick up where Reverend Karen left off last week and talk about our individual experience of unlocking peace, freedom, and real power, whether that's financial or otherwise. And I know in some centers, people stay away in the month of October because they don't want to hear a series of talks about money. So I'm doubly grateful that you've chosen to be here. And you've chosen to spend time with us. And don't worry, I'm not going to pound the money drum. I'm not going to do it because it's not who I am. I mean, you all know that centers work that way. And I don't need to make a big deal out of it. So anyway, and one of the things I love about Reverend Karen's book is how she puts it in perspective. It's about our beliefs, it's about our habits, it's about our thoughts, it's about the stories we have from our history that we are living unconsciously, and we don't even know. So it's about uncovering the history that we have. It's about uncovering those old stories that live us and letting us take them and bring them into the light of day and say, do I like this one? Is this useful for me? Or is it garbage thinking that I'm carrying around that actually doesn't even belong to me? And so we get to look at ourselves, our stories, our history, our way of being in the world, and see it with clear eyes. Everybody can do this. Not everybody's willing. And not everybody knows it's in their skill set and in their right and responsibility to be conscious of how they are, how they act, how they think, how they belong in their world. And yeah, we get to be in charge of our own experience of peace, freedom, power, joy, possibility, as Sharon said, love, and living an abundant, opulent life. That's ours. It's not somebody else's. It's ours to make that decision, to make those choices that support that way of being in the world. Do you have this little critical voice in your head saying, no, 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 no? Tell it to sit down. It's not in charge of you. Because it's about what we believe and what we reinforce by what we do. And we get to decide on whether to feed that critic or whether we get to feed our joy, our goals, our dreams, our choices. Because I promise you, if you don't choose, you're going to get garbage. I promise you that. Because that's what the world teaches. What's true is we have not absolute control, but we have an awful lot to do with how our life experience shows up. And if we don't choose, you know what we get. So each and every one of us gets to, has to, if we choose, we get to be clear and honest with ourselves. Has anybody else in this room ever had a trouble being honest with themselves? Like, wow, I didn't know I thought that. And more honest with each other. Because really, and I know I'm going to date myself, but remember that Billy Joel song from way long time ago, Honesty is the Hardest Thing? It's true. Because we don't know. We've got the story in front of our face that says, this is what's true. And in fact, it's not. It's a story we believe. And we get to decide how to enact our experience. So how do we know what we don't know? How do we know the stories that we are unconsciously living? We look at our lives and we see if our life is working the way we want. And if it's not, then there's some bit of history, some bit of garbage thinking from the past that has its hand on the controls. And we are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the ones that have the opportunity to take the steering wheel back. And if we don't do it, well, you know what we get. So today I want to talk about dead ends and roadmaps. What's a dead end? I mean, really, what's a dead end? Is there honestly such a thing as a dead end? Think about the places you've come to what looks like a dead end in your life. Is it really a dead end, or is it just a stop and pay attention? Mostly it's a stop and pay attention. It's like, wow, this isn't what I wanted. One of the things I absolutely adore about this teaching is there's no shame, there's no blame, there's no guilt, there's no shoulda, woulda, coulda, oughta, blah, blah, blah. There's no room for excuses. So every single one of us is going, well, that isn't desirable. I was going to say a different word, but hey, I'm being recorded, so that's not what I wanted. Let me pick differently. Every single opportunity, because that's what I'm calling what looks like a dead end or a cliff, here's an opportunity to say, wow, okay, I can choose differently. What do I want? And what's it going to take for me to get there? I love do-overs. I use them all the time. Like, wow, that's not right. How do I choose differently? What changes in your life if you don't have this demeaning, demanding, critical voice standing on your shoulder, pictured as a little red devil sitting on your shoulder? How do you live if you don't have that critic fussing at you? How do you be different? How do you pick a different way? Oh, that means I have to choose. Yeah, it does. It means you have to choose. And it means you get to choose. Because every single one of us has everything we need inside of us that moves us in the direction of our dreams when we choose to activate it. So I want to talk about failure, because there's this word, failure. Is failure a thing? So I want to tell you some stories about people who failed. And we don't think about them as failures. For instance, basketball player Michael Jordan. He lost more games than most NBA players ever play in. He missed more shots than most players ever take. And he scored less than 50% of the shots he took. Was he a failure? Oh no. Failure's only an opportunity to try again. It's only a stepping stone. Well, that didn't work. What do I choose instead? It's a temporary experience. It's this moment right now of, wow, that sucks. Okay, what else can I do? And you know the story of Thomas Edison, right? Responsible for 1,000 different patents, some of which were refinements on other people's inventions, but some of the stuff was new, and it was remarkable, and it was amazing. And I remembered the story, hearing the story before that, he tried 1,742 different filaments for light bulbs. But actually the number was higher than that. He tried over 10,000 different filaments for that light bulb before he found one that worked. And he didn't focus on the 9,999 failures. It's like, well, that one didn't work. Next. There were just opportunities. And J.K. Rowling, the Harry Potter lady, she was rejected by 12 publishers before she found somebody that would publish her book. Is she a failure? No, she's a very successful author. She just kept at it. It's like, well, this road is closed. Okay, so that's not the road. How do we remember that when we hit a dead end, it's not actually a dead end. It's just a do-over. And so this guy, Stephen Pressfield, author person, his book, War of Art, has spent 14 years on Amazon's top 5 books on creativity and has been on both the New York Times bestseller list and on the Wall Street Journal bestseller list. In the early pages of The War of Art, he wrote, "Most of us have 2 lives, the life we live and the unlived life within us. Between the two stands resistance." Oh, that. What's resistance? It's a belief we have. It's a story we've bought into, or some bit of garbage thinking that we thought was true. And maybe it's something we heard from a parent or a teacher, or maybe it's something we made up all on our own, based on some incomplete understanding of some situation. It's a thought, and it may not even be a conscious thought. The book that we're looking at this month, The Money Keys, is stunning because it looks like it's a book about money. But in truth, it's a book about belief systems. It's a book about unconscious garbage thinking we have owned that's not ours and not useful. It's about excavating our lives and finding out what we actually believe and what we're willing to do consistently and persistently to create and allow the life that we want. So if you were to think about right now what's important to you, the answer would change, most likely. I mean, right this minute it's one thing, but an hour from now it would be something else. And next week it would probably be something else. And it partly would depend on your experience. So if you are actually struggling to have a safe place to live, or good food to eat, or reciprocal relationships that allowed you to feel supported, a physical body that works, that's always really nice, and satisfying activities to be involved in. If any of those things were out of kilter, that would color your experience, right? That would color your focus. Every bit of those are effects. They're consequences of thought. So what's behind every single one of those things is some thought or some belief or some piece of prehistory that some part of you believes is true. Sucks, doesn't it? Yeah, I know. It does for me too. So we'll get back to this money topic here for a second. This belief in scarcity, this belief in not enough goodness to go around, is a false belief. And it's one that's a present reality for a lot of people. And not a word of it is true. In New Design for Living, page 194 and 195, Dr. Holmes wrote, "God is in everything. Our essence is diffused through all things. One presence incarnated in everyone, seeking expression through them. Philosopher William Hawking has said that every word we speak is a new incarnation of God. All of this may contradict popular theories, the materialistic philosophies, and the theologies that are based on a separation of humans and God, but it will never contradict the greatest revelations of the ages, the highest intuitions of humanity, the current trends of modern science, or the basic fact that there is but one final power in the universe, present everywhere, which, when recognized, may be consciously directed in our experience. Is that enough God for you? I love that Janet is facilitating the Labyrinth Walk every month. As Linda said earlier, there's one tonight. And for those of you that are local in Tucson and it's a lovely evening and you want to go out and play, wonderful, fabulous experience. There are a couple of things I adore about labyrinths. One, the experience is completely personal. I mean, you're there with a group of people, right? But the experience you have is yours. And it's caused by your intake of what's going on in the ceremony and the ritual that Janet does, and in your active practice of walking. The other thing that I love about labyrinths is the path is not straightforward, and it's not obvious. In fact, it's really twisty and cryptic and confusing. And you're walking around the labyrinth and you think you're like there, and oh wait, it's turning again. And you realize you haven't arrived. It's like, but I had an expectation. So remembering that you're just on the path and you're walking, and you can see the next step, maybe 2 steps, but that's all you can see. And the other thing I love about labyrinths instead of mazes, in a labyrinth, you cannot get lost. You cannot get lost. In a maze, there are all these lovely dead ends where you have to turn around and backtrack. In a labyrinth, you cannot get lost. You might be confused. You might not know where you are exactly. But you are always on the path that you're supposed to be. And so you stay in process. You stay on the path. You stay in the practice. And then you arrive at that intermediate end point. The end, the center, actually, of the labyrinth. And then you spend some time there and rest in it. And then you walk back out, the reverse of how you went in. So here's life, right? We're not ever arriving. We're not ever resting on our laurels. We're continuing to do the work. We're continuing to be engaged. We're continuing to participate in whatever is meaningful for you. And because we know community is better, this whole 2 heads are better than one thing, when you are in community, the energy is greater. We know this. I'm not speaking something weird. So before I close, I want to revisit the quote that Sharon read earlier from Dr. Holmes, A New Design for Living, page 42 and 43. It is most certain that the one who tries, who dares to think anew, who seeks to conform with the great laws of life will soon discover that they are on the way to a fuller expression and experience of life. Did you get that? Since faith in accord with reason, this is not irrational faith, this is faith in accord with reason, it's but a certain way of thinking, we can all gradually change our mental attitudes from negative to positive, from fear to certainty, and discover that the universe is for us and desires only that we succeed in all good things. What can you do if God's got your back? So I want to close with a quote from the Gospel of Thomas, from one of the Nag Hammadi's texts, and then another piece that you've heard before. So in the Gospel of Thomas, cool story about the Gospel of Thomas, by the way, Master Teacher Jesus, who is also known as Yeshua in this recorded document, is reported to have said, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you." That's a bummer. So this statement is not a threat that if we don't share our gifts, some big daddy God in the sky is going to punish us. It's not that. What it is simply a statement of cause and effect. If we deeply desire to do something, be something, have something, and we don't think that way and take action to support that, who's going to suffer? And who did it? We are the ones we've been waiting for. The other piece, and you've heard part of this before, it's in the writings of Rabbi Sylvia Rothschild. Martin Buber tells a story of the great Hasidic Rabbi Zuzah. And he's from Hanipol, just in case that matters. On his deathbed, he began to cry uncontrollably, and his students and disciples tried to comfort him. They asked him, "Rabbi, why do you weep? You're almost as wise as Moses, and you're almost as hospitable as Abraham, and surely heaven will judge you favorably." Zuzah answered, "It is true. When I get to heaven, I won't worry so much. If God asks me, 'Zuzah, why were you not more like Abraham?' or 'Zuzah, why were you not more like Moses?' I know I would be able to answer those questions. After all, I was not given the righteousness of Abraham or the faith of Moses, but I have tried to be hospitable and thoughtful. But what will I say if God asks me, 'Zuzah, why were you not more like Zuzah?'" Boy, that's a beast. And what was her name? Sylvia continues. "As a teenager, I posted a Peanuts cartoon in which Linus complained, 'There's no heavier burden than a great potential.'" Yeah. Like all those cartoons, there was great wisdom in those funny sideways comments. But the reality is each one of us has great potential for different things. We need to think about the answer we might give to that question Rabbi Zuzah was afraid of. Every human being has a unique capacity to add to the world. Each one of us can bring in more love, goodness, creativity, thoughtfulness, human warmth. We don't all need to be great scholars or rise to the top of our profession. That's not what it's about. We each have potential to be fully present here in the world, fully open to the possibilities of relationship with those in our world. We make our choice every day, walking with a pure soul that was given to us by God. So now's a good time for us to preempt that question by Zuzah. As we continue to live out our days, how shall we be more fully present as our best selves? So whether or not you're participating in a book study, or whether you're just hanging out on Sunday with me, and as I'm talking about this book, I want you to consider, no, I invite you to consider how you can live more of your best self, fully, wholly, opulently, that divine expression known by your name. Do that. Bless yourself and bless us all. Thank you. So now I want to pray like we do around here, which is affirmatively. So if I've said something useful to you, hold it in your mind while I speak the words. I know the one life that lives as me, lives as each beloved here, I know that whole and holy presence resounds. I know that every single being has within themselves this great potential to be that divine expression, that individualization of the one known by their name. I know the gift is already given. I know the opportunity of receptivity. I know the opportunity of acceptance. I know the opportunity of expression. And I recognize for each individual the push-pull of life. And I know that the divine has already visited, is already within, already resides at the center of all beings, and that life begets life. And love begets love, and joy begets joy. And each one of us has an infinite possibility of more abundance in whatever way serves each one. And the relationships, the community each one chooses to be part of. So I celebrate this opportunity to be one with the one and know that truth for each and all. Relaxing into the awareness of this, I feel my shoulders drop. And I rest easy, knowing it's not a chore, it's not a task. It's just receptivity. It's acceptance. It's allowing. And the great gift already is given. Breathing easily, I let it be. And so it is.